And then one other thing we want to talk about as far as quantities go, actually a couple more things. We got civil quantities. The civil quantities can be found by just going into the properties of the components. So since the components are 3D and they're meshes, we can report on the civil quantities, so we can get a top sloped area, we can get a planar area, as well as a volume. And you can get to the properties just by simply going into the OpenRoads Model Explorer, clicking on the Properties tool, or you can just select graphically from the 3D model and review the properties that way. Let's show you how you can do that real quick. Open up the Explorer. Getting close to the top of the hour here, so I better speed it up a little bit. I'm going to open up my components folder here inside the corridor. Select my milling. I right-click and select Properties. I'm going to open up the Properties pane over here, the Properties panel. Go down, you see Civil Quantities. You can see it lists the top sloped area, the planar area, as well as the volume. Okay, you can get that from the Explorer just using the properties, or you can just physically select one of the mesh elements in a 3D model view, and you can see it'll display those quantities over here as well. Okay, and the final thing I want to talk about with quantities, or another way you can get quantities, is if you need earthwork, so cut fill volumes and some other things, we could use the Create Cut Fill Volume tool, which creates 3D mesh elements. And you can use that in conjunction with the quantities report by name boundary to generate another type of quantity report. I'm just going to show that real quick, and then we'll have to probably end. So since we have a corridor here, we have our existing ground terrain model attached, and we have components and all that, we can generate some cut fill volumes. Now, I don't have any end conditions on here, so I'm not really concerned with cut fill volumes per se, but just want to show you how this tool functions as far as reporting other quantities, so pavement quantities specifically. I'm going to run this tool, create cut fill volumes. Just going to run this. I'm going to draw some graphics in the 3D model, additional 3D graphics, 3D elements. Okay, now I don't really have any cut fill on this project. Okay, so I'm just going to come over here and say quantities report by name boundary. Just going to run this and see what it gives us. Going to go through and analyze the 3D model. It's going to find the features in there. It's going to give us the length of the center line, the edges of pavement. It's going to give us the volume of our wearing course, the volume of our milling, our asphalt binder overlay. And it lists all that stuff right here. So it's just another way to get a report. Covered quantities, so many different ways to evaluate the quantities and cost. And now the last thing I want to talk about real briefly is the overlay vertical adjustment tool. We're not going to have time to go through this particular example today, but this is just another tool in our toolbox that we can use on our overlay and milling projects. And basically what this tool does is it helps you define a new vertical alignment based on some settings that you give it that pertain to your overlay, milling, and your backbone thickness. So you have a template, and the template is just defined as just some top template points that represent the top pavement surface. That's all you need to run this tool, technically. So if given a template, it's going to determine the top points along that template. And it's going to compare those template points to the vertices in the active surface. And then utilizing information that you enter in the dialog box, so pavement thickness or minimum milling or minimum overlay, however you have the mode set and whatever you're trying to do, it will create a vertical alignment. So it'll make an adjusted vertical alignment based on these settings that you set in the dialog. Now, most of the time it's probably going to make an adjustment upwards, but it can adjust it as needed. Now the vertical alignment that it creates, it uses the backbone thickness that you have specified in this dialog, and it uses these overlay and milling values to determine the adjustment value. Okay, now the adjustment's independent of any of the other top lines and surfaces, and it will create a new vertical. Just keep in mind that that vertical, it's not going to be like, you're not going to see like vertical curves. It's just going to be a series of tangents, chorded, and it's segmented based on the template drops over the corridor, whatever interval that was set for. Okay, if you need to smooth it out, you have to use some other techniques and tools to do that, which we'll get into at some other time. So I just wanted to introduce that real quick because this is what we'll pick up with when we get to the next session. Then we'll go through some of these different scenarios where we show how to use this tool, where we have overlay and then overlay plus maximum milling, and then we'll do one maybe with minimum milling, without maximum milling. There's a bunch of different options we can look at and utilize this tool to create an adjusted vertical alignment. Now, one thing to note about when you use this tool, when you are using it, you want to make sure you're in your geometry file. So you want to make sure you're in the file that has your horizontal and vertical geometry file in it. And then just attach your corridor that has the template assigned to it, and just attach it as a reference file, and then you can run this tool and it'll design the adjusted vertical for you. You go back to your other corridor and apply that adjusted vertical to the corridor. So with that, I think I am out of time for today because it is 6 o'clock. And hopefully we've been answering your questions as we've been going along here. Of course, there's been a lot of questions been asked about the session being recorded and the style sheets. Yes, it is being recorded. We will post that to the Learn server. We'll post the recording to Learn server in the next week or two. And then we will also try and post the style sheets that I showed, as well as the template library if you're interested in that. So we'll have to see how we can get that data to you. But for sure, the video will be there, and we will try and post the data set as well. If we can't post the data set, then we will try and email that to you if we can. So next month's session, once again, we're going to continue the discussion. We'll do some more advanced examples.
If you found this video helpful, please give it a like. If you want to see more such series, consider subscribing to our channel. Thank you, and see you next time.